Today we're going to do Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I remember when we got this book, it was so fun. My wife read it out loud. We read the whole book in like one sitting. It took us like 6 hours or whatever. But I was riveted, and so was my wife. It like opened this whole world in business and finances, and I thought, really? I mean, it was just amazing. And Rick's dad, Poor Dad, he has two dads. Rick's dad is his best friend's dad, and Poor Dad is his own personal dad. His Rick's dad was his friend, and I think rich is the wrong word. I think that was, he just wanted to use it for the title. I would have said wealthy dad, but it has two syllables, wealthy. Because he wasn't rich, he was wealthy. And we know that wealthy is when you have long-term wealth. I mean, it's sustainable. Rich is high income, right? High income, no assets type thing. Well, he just twists your brain and just makes you see things from a whole new light in finances. His rich dad was uneducated. I just love it. When everyone gets a degree from a university, now they're educated. What a bunch of garbage. That's not true at all. That means they're trained. Now their training is valuable, and they might have got some education along the way, but education is self-education, period, I think. There's some other stuff, I'm sure, but education, it's your whole life. Hello, we're doing this forever, right? Well, I hope so, because who do we want to become? Don't we want to become great? Don't we want to be better than we were yesterday? Don't we want to not deal with the same problems? That's why we do it. And it's enriching, and it's elevating, and it makes us feel awesome. And it makes life easier, and life is hard enough, but this is, anyways, kind of going off on education because I love it. But Rick's dad so he's uneducated. He doesn't have a university degree. His father does. His father has a degree, and his father spends every penny he makes every month, and they have a nice lifestyle. And his poor friend, dad, lives in kind of I wouldn't say a shack, but it's a little tiny house, and he just, it's really great writing. Now, what's her name? Sharon Lecter is a co-writer. I think she was a major writer. I think she kind of wrote. I'm not sure. I haven't researched enough, but I am very impressed with the book. It's a must-read for my children. It's on our top 100 list, and I think everyone should, because it just helps you start thinking completely different than you ever have. Now, the first part of the book is all story. Okay, talks about his rich dad and his poor dad, and then he gets into all of this financial literacy and why is it so important to be financially literate. They don't even say those words together in school. And so, how do you become financially literate? And he talks about how the wealthy, how they have their tax write-offs, right? They get paid. What they do is they expense everything, and then they pay taxes. Because they have corporations, right? And then how the poor, they have all their income come in, they take all the taxes off, and then they go buy their stuff. Well, which one's better? You get to keep a lot more money the way, and it's legal, 100% legal. I'm not doing anything that's funny or underneath the table or anything like that. So he just opens up a new idea. Now, there's seminars. You've probably heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I'm sure. You've probably heard of Cash Flow, the game, which is a great game to get you thinking that way. We own it. The computer version, I've played it. It's a lot easier because it does all the math. I already know how to do math, but to sit there and crunch all the numbers every time I do a turn, it's just kind of a pain. But the computer game does it automatically for you. You still get to make the decisions, etc., and to help you get out of the rat race. But I've noticed that in our country, and I'm generalizing, we don't like to think. So he gives an example in here that what you need to do is you need to buy a piece of real estate with an old home with like 4 acres on it, right? You buy the home he throws out $125,000. Then you subdivide it into into a half a dozen lots or whatever, and you sell the house with a half acre or a quarter acre for $100,000, and then you sell all the lots and you end up making like $150,000. Well, that's why not that everyone did it, but that's what I heard a lot of people trying to do that exact same thing. What we want to do is not copy per se. We want to understand the principles, and then we want to do our own personal application, and it might be buy real estate and subdivide. My dad did it. He made a lot of money doing it. But it might be something else, like opening a plumbing shop, you know, or a window washing company, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. But to be an owner, to start thinking that way. Now, he's got cash flow quadrants, which is a sequel to this, which is really good because it puts you in the different quadrants, whether you're an employee, an investor, a business owner. I can't think of the other one off the top of my head, but the point is that he briefly touches about those in here, but it's really important that you start thinking like an owner. No one will get wealthy if you don't own. It's impossible. You might have high income. You might have high income. I know guys that make, surgeons make $700,000 a year. That's a lot of money. But you know what? If you don't own, you're kissing all of it goodbye to taxes, and then just spending it. I mean, but if you, because you got to own real estate, you got to own stocks, you got to own something. Ownership is where it's at, and that's when he makes a great point in this book. You have to own if you want to become wealthy, and if you're willing to delay gratification. You know, Scott Peck talks about it. We love ourselves, so we're going to do delayed gratification. This is a great way. He says, look, if you want to get the Porsche, get it after you have the residual income. What a beautiful concept. So your Porsche payment is going to be, let's say, $700 a month. Well, you go out and you create investments to where you have $700 come in every month, and then you go buy your Porsche, and then you don't have any more debt. I mean, that $700 comes in, but it goes out with the payment, but you don't have to, instead of going and have a $700 payment, right? What he's saying is, you pay yourself first, no matter what. That's a principle. Pay yourself at least 10%, and then you invest your money, and you create residual income. That's the whole goal. The whole frame of mind is to be an owner, to become wealthy, and to create residual income, to create a cash flow that comes in whether you go to work or not. Now, when I say that, it's impossible not to. We live in the pie in the sky. You know, you don't have to manage your money or your investments. You just walk away and that's it. Now, there are passive investments you can do. You can buy into limited partnerships or different things like that. You can invest in real estate, where like in an apartment complex, and all you do is receive a check every month. You get a smaller return because you're not managing and doing all that stuff, but it's passive. But you still have got to make sure. There's no way around it. You've got to drive by the property. If I was investing into an apartment complex, I'd drive by, and if it looked like dump, it was getting run down, I'd say, I want my money out. You guys aren't taking care of this property, because what's going to happen? Your investment, your return's going to drop more and more and more. You're going to lose your investment. So you have to, there's always a principle of ownership, and ownership is being in charge. You have to manage your money always. You don't ever get away from that, and the people that tell you that are just trying to sell you something or in la-la land. So it does a great job of saying be an owner and cash flow. Cash flow the money. Bring the money. And what's so great about this, I think it's in this one, I can't remember, I've read several of his books, but he talks about, I think it's the next one, he talks about how the rich dad, he's sitting down with his rich dad and his best friend, and now the government passed a law that you have to have $250,000 to invest in these certain things. And they start laughing, because what a shame that everyone else can't be in these great investments because they don't have enough money. And this guy is just loaded, his rich dad. And the rich dad, remember, he was living in the small little tiny house, not a shack, but you know, not much more than that. And he had all these employees in these little stores, and he was just creating this financial future because of delayed gratification. Now, this hits home in a major way to me. My father is very wealthy, multi-millionaire. I knew another guy that I knew very well, multi-millionaire. Knew him quite well. Actually, I still know him. I know another man, self-made millionaire. And as I've analyzed these men, they all do what Rich Dad did. Delayed gratification. Kind of like the millionaire next door. You don't even know they're wealthy and millionaire, and they're millionaires. And what they do is they buy way after the time that they could buy. Meaning, they have these incredible incomes and they just keep socking away. Andrew Carnegie did the same thing. He didn't quit his job. He made like, what was it, $700 a month? I can't remember the numbers, but I think he had $43,000 he's getting off of his investments before he quit his job. $43,000 a year. And he's like making $7,000 a year, something unbelievably. Like everyone's like, well, why didn't you retire a long time ago? Why didn't you quit your job? Because there's a principle there. My father did the same thing. Way back in the day, he'd make $1,000 a month teaching music at the public school. Well, his first big year in building, because he started building, I don't know the story right, he made $85,000. Well, that was 7 times his income. He didn't quit his job. He hired his brother to run the homes for him. Why? It's a principle. And what you do, and I learned the hard way. I'm 40, I'm living in my friend's basement, for heaven's sake. With 6 kids, broke. I didn't have enough money. I go to the grocery store 3 days a week. I'm telling you, it was the worst time of my life. I woke up. I finally said, the pain's bad enough, I'm going to change my life. And I decided to live the principles. And now I'm living in a townhome. It's 2 years later. Could I afford something else? Absolutely. I make way more than I should here. I'm almost embarrassed to show people where I live. But I know the principle. And we're getting strong. Yes. It works. We're delayed gratification. I'm an owner. We're getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And we're just going to get strong. And we're going to buy a home, I think, next year. But it's not going to be the home that I could get into. It's just going to be one step up. It's not going to be a townhome. It's going to be a single-family home. And it's going to be a smaller home. And we're going to fit in it fine. Right now we don't even have a garage. We converted the garage here. But we're still okay. We have 6 kids, but we're fine. And what we have to do is, probably should be your money or your life too with this. Because that's huge. That's just a lot what Rich Dad, Poor Dad's saying. But then we'll get into this home, and then later on we'll get into the nicer home. And if it's in 5 years, great. I don't care anymore because I want financial peace more than I want that, and I want wealth more than I want to be in a nice home. And that's what I always did. I always jumped in these great big homes, and then I was back out of them really soon because I didn't live those principles. And I know I've kind of got off, but this book was revolutionary for me. I just wish I would have saved myself so much pain by applying what I read, for heaven's sake. I read this book 15 years ago, almost 13 years ago, and I'm telling you, I could not believe it. And I just thought I could get around the principles. You can't. You can't get around them no matter what. You have to live the principles. So, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, please read it, and more importantly, apply what he's teaching. Start thinking like an owner. Don't be risky, not be dumb. You have to take some risk, but take calculated risk. And be smart. And learn to pay yourself first and create a corporation, which you can do with, $300, $400, $500 and save yourself a ton of money in taxes. Because you get so many more write-offs, and you write off everything off, and then you pay the taxes on what's over. So, love it. Enjoy it. Talk to you soon.